Welcome to MindnomicsOfficial, where we explore the hidden psychology behind money, decisions, and human behavior. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating and honestly deeply misunderstood phenomenon. Have you ever wondered why some of the most successful, high-earning people you know still operate as if they are constantly on the absolute brink of financial ruin? Well, we are exploring the thesis that financial insecurity isn't always a math problem. Often, it's actually a nervous system problem.
Okay, let's dive into this with a quote from researcher Brené Brown, who perfectly sums this up. She says that worrying about scarcity is our culture's version of post-traumatic stress. And to truly understand what she means by that, I want to introduce you to Vivian. Vivian is a highly successful corporate executive. By every objective measure, she has totally made it. She's built an incredible career, manages a sizable team, and earns a very comfortable living. But subjectively, internally, Vivian feels completely exhausted and perpetually terrified that it's all going to just vanish tomorrow.
This brings us to what we can call the Vivian paradox. On one side, we have her objective reality, right? The six-figure salary, the high-end professional life, the obvious stability. But on the exact opposite side is her nervous system's reality. See, Vivian grew up in a household where money was genuinely tight and emotional reassurance was scarce. The implicit message she absorbed as a kid was simply, there is never enough. And the crazy paradox here is that while her bank account has grown tremendously, her nervous system never got the memo that the days of childhood scarcity are actually over.
And this brilliantly illustrates that Vivian is absolutely not an anomaly. Not even close. Recent data from the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia shows something staggering. Roughly 30% of consumers making at least $150,000 a year report being concerned about making ends meet in the next 6 months. Just let that sink in for a second. We are talking about a massive demographic of panicked high earners. This tells us, loud and clear, that earning a high income does not automatically erase the internal feeling of financial insecurity. To understand why this happens, we really have to look at the clinical psychology behind it. When a developing brain grows up in an environment characterized by chronic scarcity, whether that's inconsistent food, financial instability, or unpredictable emotional care, the nervous system essentially hardwires not enough as its default baseline. It develops what psychologists call a threat-based resource guarding system. What does that mean? It means the brain literally treats the potential loss of everyday resources, like money or an opportunity at work, as a life-or-death survival-level threat.
So this leads directly to a state of hypervigilance to resource threat. Your nervous system is continuously scanning the environment, constantly searching for signs that resources are depleting. And here is the real kicker. This neurobiological alertness overrides your conscious, logical appraisals of safety. It creates a false neuroception of danger. For driven women like Vivian, it causes them to react to a slightly lower bank balance or just a quiet month in business, like it's a 5-alarm fire. The alarm trips entirely regardless of what the actual numbers say.
And living in this state comes with a massive, massive cost, which researcher Sendhil Mullainathan calls the bandwidth tax. Scarcity literally captures your mental focus. Think of it like having 50 tabs open in your brain's browser, and they're all playing warning sirens at the same time. For Vivian, this chronic hypervigilance heavily taxes her mental bandwidth. It narrows her cognitive flexibility, it impairs her judgment, and it completely exhausts her. Why? Because she is constantly running this intensive background program calculating risk, even when she is supposedly off the clock.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how these internal responses actually fall into distinct categories. Researchers Brad and Ted Klontz developed the Klontz Money Script Inventory to map out these unconscious, transgenerational beliefs that drive our financial behavior. They identified 4 main scripts: money avoidance, money worship, money status, and money vigilance. These scripts operate entirely under the surface. They shape exactly how we save, how we spend, and how we stress over money. And they often trace right back to those childhood environments we were just talking about.
Let's zoom in specifically on the money status script for a moment. People operating on this script unconsciously believe that their self-worth equals their net worth. They often take a highly competitive stance toward acquiring wealth and status symbols. Fascinatingly, research shows this script is frequently linked to individuals who grew up in lower socioeconomic households. The drive to elevate one's status becomes scratch that. It becomes a profound psychological trap. It's a way for a threatened nervous system to try to prove its safety and value to the world. And this is exactly the script Vivian is unconsciously running. But what happens when you actually achieve that wealth, yet you still carry the old script? Well, you experience profound cognitive dissonance. This is that deep psychological tension and discomfort high earners feel when their present reality, the fat bank account and the career success, directly clashes with their deeply ingrained, internalized not enough operating system. If you've ever achieved a massive goal but felt an unexplainable sense of dread instead of relief, you've experienced this exact dissonance. You know logically you are safe, but your body is screaming that you're in danger.
This dissonance often fuels a very specific behavioral pattern, the lifestyle creep cycle. Now, normally we just think of lifestyle creep as bad budgeting, right? But clinically, we can reframe it entirely. Step 1, you earn more. Step 2, Vivian's threatened nervous system tries to literally buy safety. Maybe it's a luxury SUV or a bigger house in a gated neighborhood. But then, Step 3 hits, her baseline resets. And finally, Step 4, the underlying panic returns. Because those external purchases never actually addressed the internal alarm system.
Psychologists call that resetting process hedonic adaptation. The initial thrill and perceived safety of a lifestyle upgrade fades incredibly quickly. The new, bigger house is just the place you live after a few weeks, and the luxury car just becomes the thing you sit in during traffic. But while the happiness resets to exactly where it started, the costs, the higher mortgage, the increased insurance, those remain permanently elevated. This keeps high earners trapped on a hedonic treadmill where spending rises in lockstep with income, silently destroying their ability to build long-term structural wealth.
In the workplace, this scarcity mindset is incredibly hard to spot because it disguises itself as professional virtue. For driven women like Vivian, it often shows up as hoarding opportunities, basically saying yes to every single project out of pure fear that the well will dry up. It shows up as an inability to delegate, because trusting someone else feels neurologically unsafe when you grew up having to rely only on yourself. And paradoxically, it shows up as an intense difficulty spending money on herself, treating her own needs as a dangerous luxury that will somehow deplete the supply.
The consequences of this are measurable, and frankly, they're shocking. Over 14% of people earning $150,000 and up withdrew money early from their retirement savings to cope with financial stress over the past year. High income does not magically prevent scarcity-driven mistakes. In fact, a panicked nervous system will happily cannibalize your long-term security just to alleviate the short-term perception of threat.
So the crucial point is, if we want to fix this, we have to distinguish between two very different experiences. On one side, you have situational financial anxiety. This is a proportional response to a real math problem. You have a debt or a job loss, and the anxiety resolves when the conditions improve. But on the other side is the childhood scarcity mindset. This persists through promotions, windfalls, and literally decades of stability. It is largely decoupled from your current circumstances because it's a neurobiological lag time. The anxiety isn't tied to your current bank statement, it's tied to an old environment.
For Vivian, moving from chronic scarcity to genuine sufficiency requires a whole lot more than just downloading a new budgeting app. First, she must name the operating system when it flares up, really recognize it as an old survival response. Second, distinguish present tense fear from past tense fear. Third, address the emotional scarcity underneath the material one, because often money is just a stand-in for early deficits in love or safety. And most importantly, she has to work with the body, not just the mind. And this is exactly why simply trying to adopt an abundance mindset has a hard ceiling. You literally cannot just think or affirm your way out of a physiological survival response. Telling a nervous system that is calibrated to deep scarcity to just choose abundance is like telling someone mid-panic attack to just choose calm. It doesn't work. Simple cognitive reframing fails because it doesn't reach the threat system that operates far below our conscious intellectual thought.
Let's move to that and see how this builds into a really critical realization. The nervous system doesn't update through intention. It updates through experience. True, lasting wealth, and the ability to actually enjoy it, requires somatically rewiring the body over time. It requires slowly, steadily giving the nervous system repeated experiences of safety, proving to it over and over that the threat is gone and that it has finally arrived in a place of genuine sufficiency.
Which leaves us with this profound question to reflect on. If Vivian's bank account objectively says she is safe, but her nervous system constantly detects danger and prevents her from experiencing any real peace, what is her true net worth? Wealth is completely meaningless if your body won't let you inhabit it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you look at your own financial psychology through a powerful new lens.